I want to welcome all of you to our worship service, both people who are here and those who are at home. It's kind of nice to have a worship service that's spread out over a lot of area. You know, got the whole world going here. Supposed to remind you to, I'm terrible with announcements. There's a welcome form, I guess, to fill out, and prayer requests on the back, and they will be picked up during the opening hymn. It's a beautiful Labor Day weekend, and a special day in my family because it's Kathy's birthday, so we're celebrating that too. She turns 39.
Good morning. You'll notice that I am not Barb Schmidt. Barb Schmidt is under the weather today, and so I'm filling in for her. And we hope, Barb, that you get well and are feeling top of the morning tomorrow, even as early as tomorrow. Whether you are in the sanctuary or at home, please stand as you are able and join me in the call to worship. Your response is highlighted in the bold print. Come, all who labor and are weighed down with responsibility, uncertainty, and worry. Come, all you who seek to relate work and worship, leisure and service into a meaningful whole. Come, sinner and saint, with your hatreds and loves, your failures and successes, your sorrows and joys. The first hymn this morning is Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, and the words are on the screen. Please remain standing as you join me in the invitation to prayer. Your response is highlighted in the bold print. God of power and mercy, only with your help, may we live the faith we profess. We ask this through our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son, Amen. Please be seated.
Will you join with me now in the prayer that Jesus shared with us as a prayer to pray in his name together? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Today's scripture reading is from 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 7 through 11. The end of all things is near. Therefore, be serious and discipline yourselves for the sake of your prayers. Above all, maintain constant love for one another, for love covers a multitude of sins. Be hospitable to one another without complaining. Like good stewards of the manifold grace of God, serve one another with whatever gift each of you has received. Whoever speaks must do so as one speaking the very words of God. Whoever serves must do so with the strength that God supplies, so that God may be glorified in all things through Jesus Christ. To him belong the glory and the power forever and ever. Amen. And now we will be gifted by special music from our choir, Immortal, Invisible, God Only Wise.
Immortal, invisible, God only wise, in light inaccessible, hid from our eyes, most blessed, most glorious, the Ancient of Days, almighty, victorious, thy great name we praise. Unresting, and silent as light, nor wanting, nor wasting, our rulers in light. Thy justice like mountains, thy soaring above, thy clouds with our mountains, how goodness and love. To all life thou givest, to both great and small. In all life thou livest, the true life of all. We blossom and flourish as seeds on the tree, and wither and perish, but not change a thing. Great Father of glory, pure Father of light, thy angels adore thee, all veiling their sight. All lovely Lord grandeur, oh help us to see, 'tis only the splendor of thy light and deed.
I want to thank St. Paul's Church for inviting me to share my witness in the God that I believe in through the face of Jesus Christ. As a young boy, I dreamed, as a lot of people do when they're young, of what the world would be like when I grew up. How's it going to be different? Is it going to be better or worse? And there's always the belief that it's going to be better in some way. They'll have special jetpacks that'll be able to fly across the city. You won't have to worry about driving anywhere. Or if you had to drive, you'd have a car that would drive itself. Well, maybe. And that maybe there'd become a watch that would have a radio and a television in it and everything you needed. Well, by golly, seems like some of that came true. I hoped and believed that maybe it would be a world that would be better in every way. There'd be peace. People would have learned enough that they would have stopped fighting each other, stopped insulting and berating each other, stopped being cruel to each other. Well, I was a little disappointed in that one. The world doesn't seem to be better. In fact, it seems like chaos and problems are always with us. They come in every age. We sometimes feel that our time is one of the worst times in history. And look around, and I have a sister-in-law that won't even watch the news anymore because she says it's just always bad news. And it seems like it is. There's always just something coming up that just is terrible. You say, what on earth? There's fires, there's floods, there's everything you can imagine is bad. Shootings in the streets, people are living on sidewalks. Well, why haven't we learned better how to make a better world out of it? But it isn't unique to our time. We are standing on a precipice, looking over the edge, looking like a big fall down. But every age has had the same thing. You go back to Noah. Noah said, things look bad. Go back to Moses. Moses said, oh, things look bad in my time. Go back to Paul. Paul in his letters wrote how terrible things were for the people in the early church. Some time ago, longer than I like to admit, I was in a Gilbert Sullivan show, HMS Pinafore, played captain. And there was a song in there that I had not heard before, and I liked Gilbert Sullivan and liked a lot of their music, but it was one that I hadn't heard before. And I had to learn it because the captain was supposed to sing this song. And not being much of a singer, it was a struggle for me. But it had a phrase in it that is uniquely British, describing the times that we live in. They said things are at sixes and sevens. And I hadn't heard that phrase before, but it just means that things are all kind of twisted up. I know you'd like for me to sing it to you, but Gilbert Sullivan asked me not to. But everything, tell me, why is everything, he says in the song, why is everything always at sixes and sevens? It just seems like that's the way it always is. Always in every age, things are not going well. It's just an attribute of human life, human existence. It seems to be particularly true right now of the United Methodist Church. I know we don't get a chance to really explore that much. I mean, maybe you've read some on the internet with the news about what's happening with the United Methodist Church. It seems like we can hardly use the word united anymore. It seems like the church is talking about dividing, the divided Methodist Church. There's a splinter church that's already broken off called the Global Methodist Church. And it's sad that there's been that kind of a division and that kind of bad feelings. And it's over the issue of LGBTQ ordination as pastors. Can you have gay pastors? The discipline says, no, we shouldn't have. And a lot of people would like to change that. But there are places where homosexuality is a real deadly crime. I know in Uganda, for example, right now, if you are found to be homosexual, it's a death penalty. You actually can be killed. There are countries where it's illegal to be gay. And so there are very strong feelings on both sides. And I'm sympathetic with both sides, people who would want to be more open to gays and people who have problems accepting gays. But it seems more of a sociological issue than it is a religious issue. I looked through the New Testament several times this year to see what it had to say about homosexuality. And the word homosexual only appears once in the New Testament, which is not unusual because the word homosexual didn't come into usage until 1891, 130 years ago. It was the first time it appeared in print. Before that, they always referred to unnatural acts or sodomy. None of those are really pleasant topics, and they bring to mind bad behavior on parts of people. But it's social more than it is religious. None of the 10 Commandments addresses homosexuality. The Sermon on the Mount in the New Testament says nothing about homosexuality. And in fact, most of the words that Jesus is quoted as saying say we should love everyone. He loved lepers. He loved tax collectors. He loved sinners. And he was abused by the church of his day for liking those people and associating with them. In one place in the Sermon on the Mount in chapter 5 in Matthew, Gospel of Matthew, he says, if you are angry with your brother, you stand for the judgment of God. If you insult your brother, you have to go before the council and be judged by the council. If you say to someone, your brother, you fool, you face the fires of hell. That's pretty strong, saying that we ought to care for and love all people. And I know that as Christians, we devoutly try to do those sorts of things, but it is very difficult. And part of it is because we grow up with certain attitudes, or we develop certain attitudes because of the environment we live in. Our neighbors, our friends, our associates, the organizations we belong to encourage us to think in certain ways. So we have a perspective, a point of view, and that governs a lot of how we see things. And sometimes it's not a good way of seeing things. As an example of this, I read a story some time ago of a man who was talking to his wife, and he said, Sophie, were you with me when in year 2000 I lost my job and it seemed like the end of the world for me? His wife said, oh yes, I was with you. I was right there. He said, oh yeah, okay, well, were you with me in 2008 when the recession hit and I lost half of my savings and it seemed like we were financially, I was going to be in ruin? And Sophie said, yes, I was right there, I was with you. He said, and Sophie, when in 2019 I got COVID and I was terrible sick and I thought I was going to die, were you there with me? Sophie said, yes, I was right there beside you all the time. And it says, well, you know, Sophie, I'm beginning to think you bring me bad luck. Well, it's a perspective. Sees it the way he wants to see it, the way he's expected to see it. Actually, there's another side to that story, too, that Kathy shared with me. The husband went to his wife, maybe the same husband, the same wife, and he said, you know, I've decided to be cremated. And his wife said, good, I'll make an appointment for next Tuesday. It's all a point of view. How do we find a way to get beyond these sorts of things? A typical answer that is suggested is, well, as we learn more, as we become more aware of how the world works, we'll adjust and we'll become better people. Doesn't always work that way, but that's the hope, and that's the expectation, the dream. If we just knew more, if we think science may give us the answers to these things, that will give us a understanding of how the universe works and how people work, how everything works. Science will give us those answers. One of the things that's difficult for us to understand, though, is what science means by the word theory. Science deals in a lot of theories, and theory doesn't mean typically what we have jumped to thinking it means, that it's a speculation, it's an idea, it's a guess. But theory means it's the best explanation for the events or the facts that we can see, that we've already observed. If we take all of the things that we know about how what a thing is doing, and we find an explanation that fits all of those things, we can have a theory. Some of the things in our universe are so complex and so large that we just know that we never will know everything we should know. We will never know everything we should know about the universe as a whole. We'll never know everything in cosmology. We don't know everything about how the human brain works. We don't know how consciousness works, why there is something inside of us that makes decisions and thinks not in response, but just on its own. How does that work? We have no way of knowing it. May never know. So we have theories. There's a theory of gravity. There's a theory of evolution. There's the Big Bang theory. And that's a particular interest to me right at this time because of the James Webb Telescope and what is found out. I remember when the Hubble telescope went up, and it was an outstanding telescope at the time. And they used the telescope to look at places they'd never seen before. It saw farther and saw better, more clearly, what the rest of the universe was like. It was said, they measure distances in cosmology by light years. And light years is a distance that light travels in a year. And it's incomprehensible how far that is. I don't want to get into a lecture on that, but we are dealing with the telescopes like the Hubble and the James Webb, with billions of light years. Now, billion is a big number. Just out of curiosity in your own mind, if you were to count 1, 2, 3, a number every second, how long would it take you to count to 1 billion? Well, you think, I guess might be 2 years. If you work it out, it comes to something more than 30 years to count to 1 billion every second, one number every second. It would actually be a little longer because as you get to bigger numbers, it takes more than a second to say the number. And so pretty soon you run out, well, where am I going to end up on this? The Hubble was supposed to see 13 billion light years away. When they used it, they saw stars and galaxies they'd never seen before. And it was astonishing because the question always is, well, is there an edge to the universe of some kind? And they looked, and it seemed like everywhere you looked, the universe just went on and on. It was more of the same. Every direction, more of the same. No edge was visible. But everything did seem to be moving apart. Not through some weird force, but it just seemed like everything was just spreading apart. So that things were all spreading apart from each other in the universe. Not fast, but they were spreading. And they were able to measure this by the shifting of light in the spectrum. Oh boy, here we go. But it's what they call the red shift. As things are going away from you, the light waves get longer and they go so everything shifts toward the red. Everything looks more red, but it's going away from you in the light. And Hubble, the original Hubble, had measured some of these speeds and everything, had determined that these things were going away almost kind of in a straight line, and you could trace back where they had started from, and it looked like everything had started in one spot. And he said, well, it must be that everything in that one spot kind of exploded, and now everything is just kind of spreading out. And so in the newspapers, they called it the Big Bang. And it became a theory, and it fit a lot of the things that they were able to see in the cosmology of the time. The James Webb Telescope was designed to see better in that red side of the spectrum. So they thought we could see farther. Because we see farther, we'll see more red. Things are spreading out. The things that are going fastest are the things that have gone the farthest away from us. They are more red than everything else. We'll see more red. So they took pictures of the farthest regions. The Hubble saw out 13 and some billion light years away. The James Webb was supposed to see something like 16 or more billion light years away. When they looked at the pictures, the scientists, the cosmologists were astonished. They said, yes, there are red stars, but there's other things there that shouldn't be there. We should be seeing the beginnings of the Big Bang. We should be seeing things starting out. We should see all red, blobby things, just hot from an explosion. But they said we see blue stars also, regular stars. We see galaxies that are fully formed, that aren't explosions of any kind. We see a universe, a section of the universe looks just like where we are. Galaxies shaped just the way our galaxies are. Cool stars and hot stars, just the way ours are. They said, what does this mean? He said, surely we are aware things still are spreading out, yes, but it's the same. A man named Eric Lerner, a cosmologist who's speaking actually next week at a conference in London called Let There Be Light, wrote a book that he titled, Is the Big Bang Theory Wrong? And he said, yes, it is wrong. It doesn't explain what we see now in the edges of the universe. Other cosmologists argue with him and say, well, maybe it's just because it's hard for them to change their ideas. They're committed to that. They were taught that. They have got to believe it. So they say, no, it's probably the telescope that's bad. We're looking at it with the wrong eye. We got to change the other eye and maybe it'll look different. He says, no, and a lot of people with him say no. It's just the Big Bang Theory is not the best theory. And so, of course, the people interviewing him asked, well, what is the best theory? Is there a better theory? He said, actually, the best theory that I can think of is the theory that religion gives, that God created the universe. And he said, God created the universe? Said, yes, and set up a process of creation that just keeps going. New stars just keep forming, new galaxies. It happens everywhere. A comedian once commented that the real problem with infinity is that you don't know where it'll end. And that's the very issue with the universe. We have no idea where it ends. But the information we have now suggests that it's much the same anywhere you look. And to have a group of scientists say that one of the better explanations right now is not the Big Bang, but is the God creation myth. That this is a better theory, the God myth, the God theory. For Christians, I think this is and all religious and spiritual people, it's an encouragement to examine what our thinking is and where we are, to realize that there are a lot of theories, that the God theory is a theory also, and it explains things better in some ways, but there's things that it still doesn't explain. It doesn't explain why things are always changing in the universe. We would like to think in terms of intelligent design. That's a common phrase in religion nowadays, that God created things and there's a design to it, and there's a pattern, and it's the right way things should be designed. But when you look at it, how can that be true? Because things keep changing. The one real pattern that is constant in the universe, on Earth, in the far-flung galaxies, is everything changes. Some things change very slowly, some things change very rapidly, but they change. We had our teenage grandchildren with us for the summer, a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old. And I'm reminded every time we get together with them that they're a whole lot younger than I am, and 3 or 4 generations younger than I am. But we try to keep up, we try to understand. Last summer, they taught me how to dab. You know how to dab? You know, it's a gesture. And it's kind of like you're saying, leave me alone, or I'm all by myself, I'm in my own world. Like that. So when I saw him this summer, I thought, well, I'll remind him that I'm real hip, you know, I'm in on it. So when I got a chance, I said, okay, hey, dab. Their response was, Grandpa, that looks so weird when you do it. We don't do that anymore. That was last year. Everything changes. I said, oh, okay. But the idea that there is a spirit of some kind that's behind the universe, that is setting the universe in motion, that is providing the power to the universe, is very religious and very spiritual and very Christian, very consistent with what we believe theologically. But the problem is, it is so far beyond our ability to understand. Who can understand even 16 billion light years? There's no way. That's way beyond the ability of the human mind to contain. We just can't reach that far in our thinking. Who can understand God? We just can't reach that far in our thinking. The heavens declare the glory of God. Well, yeah, but whoa, what does that look like? We can believe in this spiritual power. We can believe in a spiritual power that touches each of us in our lives and touches the farthest galaxies in the universe. We can believe in those things and we say, what is it like? What is that power like? In an elementary school art class, the teacher had given an assignment to the students, 5th grade, said, I want you to draw a picture of something that you think is really important, that you like, and you'd like to show other people. And so they were all drawing, and the teacher was walking around looking at them. The first one was a picture of a house with some people in front of it. It says dad, mom, girl, dog. Next one was an airplane with people looking out the windows, the portholes of the airplane. Next one was a picture of a monster. The person had drawn a picture of a monster with fangs and claws, a dragon. When the teacher got to the 4th one, a little boy said, I'm not sure what you're drawing. That's kind of an odd picture. What is it you're drawing? He said, I'm drawing a picture of God. The teacher said, well, nobody knows what God looks like. The boy said, well, they will when I get done with my picture. I wish it were that easy. Wish we could draw a picture of God. In the New Testament, the Christians insisted, and from that day to this, Christians have insisted, we see what God is like, not the face of God, but we beheld the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ, as Paul writes in his letter to the Corinthians. The glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. We see the personality, the character of God in the man Jesus Christ. Well, what did Jesus look like? Well, there are all these pictures of Solomon's, head of Christ with a long brown hair, very handsome European features. A lot of people complained and said, well, he wasn't European. He was Israeli. He was probably very dark-skinned, probably had a large nose. He was probably much like an Arab. The odd thing is that, well, in many countries, other countries in the world, the pictures of Jesus look like that. They're very dark-skinned pictures of Jesus. The weird thing is that the oldest picture that we have of Jesus, that was identified as Jesus, from just a couple of hundred years after Jesus' death, shows him with red hair. And people have worried about that. Said, what on earth does that mean? Did Jesus really have red hair? Or did this person drawing that picture, did he have red hair and said, well, I'll make him like me? But the point really is lost if we try to say, what did Jesus look like, any more than what did God look like? It's the personality and the character of Jesus that tells us what God is like. It's not what he looked like, it's what he was. That he's immutable, that though the world is changing, there's something about that spirit that pervades the universe beyond all of our understanding. There's something that does not change. A caring, a closeness, a being part of all that we can be. The glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. I thank you for giving me a chance to witness. But I would be amiss if I didn't say that I thank you for your witnesses too. When I get to wondering what God looks like, what Jesus looks like, I really look at the church. And even though when it's struggling to stay together, even when it's people working to make it more provincial in this country and that country, even whether there are people that are focusing on small and petty things, there's always a group of people who are displaying the glory of God. There's always people who are giving money to help other people who are needy. There are people who are making things to hand out to people that are lost and lonely. There are people who go out and say a kind word and give a hug to someone whose world is collapsing around them in a horrible, terrible silence. And I see that in you. And that's your witness in this community and in this world. And it's the one hope that I think we really have for bringing people back from the edge of the precipice, for bringing humanity back to some way of being together, living together in warm and loving, growing, creative ways. I thank you.
The announcements this morning, I believe, are printed in your bulletin, but I'll just try to highlight some of them. The church office will be closed tomorrow, Monday, September 5th, for the Labor Day holiday. After Labor Day, starting with Tuesday, the office hours will be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. The Monday night evening group is going to start up again, and their first meeting after the break will be on Monday, September 26th at 7 p.m. The Friday small groups will still be meeting on Friday at 12:30 p.m. Next Sunday, September 11th at 10:30, we will be having a worship led by John Nielsen. I'm sure there are a lot of you that know him and have heard him before, and of course, he is really Cracker Jacks. He's really great. Then the following Sunday, on the 18th of September, we will have a shared outdoor worship at North Clackamas Park picnic shelter next to the Milwaukee Center. If you have a prayer request, please phone the office, and the phone number is in your bulletin, or email the office. Now we'll have our last hymn, Here I Am, Lord.
Will you join with me in our blessing and commission? Lord, please look on us with grace, and surround us with peace.